All right. I got this. Technology is my friend. All right. So why diets tell you what to eat, not why. What happens when life happens, right? So when you get disappointed by someone, when somebody, like someone does something that you are really upset about, there's a lot of different things that can happen to us, and we can feel very discouraged or sad or all those different feelings, and we have a tendency to go to food to feel better. And that's just part of our upbringing, all of that. Okay, so, all right, excellent. All right, so I'm just going to, oops. Okay, I apologize here. Oh dear. Here, let me stop the share. Oh dear, I made a mistake here. I'm sorry, Colleen. Let me just, you're just watching, and then you can leave questions, have your questions, and at the end we'll answer them. Okay?
I missed the first part.
Yeah. All right. So how do you want to be on the screen while I'm teaching, or do you want to just listen and at the end I can bring you up after?
Who? Me?
Yeah.
Well, I missed the first part.
Okay. So basically the first part was just me record. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. There we go. All right. So that's why diets don't work. All right. So here we go. What this webinar will teach you. So the basic science of weight loss. Then I'm going to talk about the food plan that I created for you. And then I'm going to help you know how to evaluate how your food plan is working for you. That's super, super important. So hello again. My name is Dara Thomason. I'm so happy to meet you. I am a professional quilter who has turned life coach, and I help people be able to recognize why they're not achieving the weight loss goals that they want. And I also help people understand that I myself have lost 50 pounds without exercise or counting calories. And I teach my clients, my one-on-one clients, how to do the same thing. And one of the ways that has really helped me in this whole process of losing weight in this way is that I often refer to myself as the president of the Perfectionist Recovery Program, which I created because I thought for so many years, if I just figured out how to lose the weight without, if I did it the right way, I would never have any more problems and weight would never be an issue. Now, guess what? I was able to accomplish that. And I help my clients to do that. And it has been amazing transformation. But I also teach them so many tools to help them to accomplish this in such a powerful way. All right, so the first part of the basic science for weight loss. So you go to any library, any internet search, and it's completely overwhelming and frustrating because there's so many different interpretations or different understandings of weight loss. So challenging. And when we feel overwhelmed, it leads to inaction. And so many of us just like put our hands in the air and we're like, I don't even know what to eat anymore. So I'm just going to eat whatever and hopefully everything's going to be fine. So there's 3 hormones in our body that helps with weight loss. That's it. There's just 3. So we've got, the first one is insulin. So the most important hormone is insulin. The obesity epidemic is caused by too much insulin in the blood. Insulin is a storage hormone. So whenever it is elevated in the blood, the body cannot burn or utilize fat as a fuel. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about that. Insulin resistance and diabetes have skyrocketed with the increase of consumption of high sugar, high starch foods. Insulin also affects the presence and effectiveness of ghrelin and leptin. So we've got ghrelin. So ghrelin is what tells us when we're hungry. Okay. And so it's really important to have our ghrelin regulated so that we can actually understand real hunger. And leptin, this tells us when we're full. So it's a hormone in our body that lets us know, hey, you've had enough fuel and we're good to go. So we don't need to have any more. Now, the problem is if we're taking in too much sugar and too many carbs that with the refined flour, then we have an over consumption of insulin. And so every time we eat, even when we have snacks or anything healthy, even our insulin is affected. Okay. So I like to explain it to my clients that, so just like a car has a tank of gas, right? So you put the tank, you fill it up. And now your body has like all it needs for operating because food is fuel. So when you go and you fill up your body with all of this fuel, what happens is then that fuel turns into glycogen and it goes into our bloodstream. And in the glycogen is like our energy. So let's say we're driving down the road and we're like, oh, there's another gas station. I want to fill that gas station up. I fill up my car with the gas station, but the car is like, but wait a minute, we already have enough fuel in our tank. And so what happens is we're like, well, we want to eat the food. So the body says, well, we don't have any more room for that. So I guess we'll have to get some jerry cans. And so you get some jerry cans and you fill the jerry cans with a bunch of gas. And now you're like walking around with you're driving with all these jerry cans attached to the car. It's the same thing with our body. So our body is like, wait a minute, we have enough. We have more than enough. We don't know what to do with all this extra. So that's why we have extra fat on us. That extra fat, it's like 1 pound of fat is around 3,000 calories. So we are literally walking around storing all this extra energy. Now, our bodies are created to be very efficient with food. So back in the day when we didn't have grocery stores or refrigeration, and we didn't know when we were going to have our next kill of like a buffalo or a deer, our body was super efficient with how it uses its energy. And so we have a reaction. So when we eat, we have a dopamine release, right? And that dopamine release says, oh, this is really good. You need to eat and eat and eat. And so what happens though, is that the dopamine gets released and we're like, we want to eat, we want to eat, we want to eat, but we don't have any more storage for the fuel. And that's where we get all this extra fat on our bodies. Now, what we have to understand is that if we reduce how much leptin and how much insulin we put in, then our bodies can be more efficient. So we have our fuel in our bloodstream. And so that, the other part too of this is that we have concentrated foods in our bodies. So for example, refined sugar and flour, those are like the superstar. Like they just super surge of energy. And our body is like, whoa, this is incredible. This is like so much energy. So what happens is when we eat and we're constantly giving ourselves all of this insulin and we're like all of a sudden needing to like store it in our body, we're never going to access the storage in our body. We never will. So it's like eating from the fridge and never going to the freezer. Because the fridge, it's like automatic food like this, right? And so but the problem is we have all of this extra storage like under our arms, in our stomachs, in our bellies, and we need to access that energy. So when I say that I lost the 50 pounds without exercise or counting calories, I didn't necessarily count the calories because I was like, guess what? I have a lot of fuel in my very own body, in my storage. So that's super important. So when we want to get fat adapted. So what it means to be fat adapted is that we need to start using the energy that we are carrying around in our body. So again, we need to rid our system of the flour and the sugar so the hormones can work in the way that they're supposed to. Okay. Now again, in order for our body to work the way it's supposed to work, we've got the hormone that tells us we're hungry, right? And then we have the hormone that tells us when we're full. However, if we are constantly putting so much fuel in our body, our leptin and ghrelin, they can't work properly. And so we aren't ever really able to know when we are really full or when we're not. Now, the other way that this shows up is that if we get in the habit of, like, in the morning we have breakfast, and then at 10:30 we have a snack, and then at noon we have lunch, and then we have our like midday snack, and then we have dinner, and then we have our before dinner snack, our body is like, wow, this is amazing. Like on the hour, like we are hungry, because it's like, we know that if we say something, like we have some sort of, thought, like, hey, let's eat, then this person will bring lots of fuel. And our body, like our lower brain, the survival brain, all of that is, it's on overdrive, right? So it's going to like really want you to do that. So a lot of my clients are like, well, I think I was hungry. And I was like, okay, you ate breakfast at like, say 7:00. Do you really think that all the energy and glycogen is out of your bloodstream by 10:30? Are you really hungry, or what's really going on? And so that's a lot of the coaching that I do with my clients is I'm like, okay, what we really get to, like, why you're going to the food. Okay. So right now we're just working on the science of it. So in order to get our body to run efficiently in the way that it's supposed to, we need to learn how to, our hormones work the way they're supposed to. And in order for them to really work in the way that they are meant to, and they're most efficient, is by emptying out that tank of gas, right? We want to empty it all out, and then we can start accessing all the jerry cans. So when we can not eat sugar and flour for 6 weeks, what that's doing, it's just getting rid of all those extra processed carbs and flour that have given us such a spike in our insulin. And then our body can start regulating and feeling like how it's supposed to. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so let's talk about our fuel plan. I mean, our fuel, you call it a fuel plan for sure, right? All right, so what I wanted to do was I wanted to provide you with a meal plan. Now, I've never actually done this before, but I have, so I'm at the Life Coach School, which I absolutely love. And the tools that I have been teaching my clients are just like, they changed their life. They've changed my life. And one of the coaches at the Life Coach School, she was coaching someone the other day, and she said, you know what? Provide a meal plan, because what's going to happen is we're going to learn a lot about ourselves when we make a plan. We're going to get a lot of awareness of what's really going on, because I always talk to my clients, here you are right now at your current weight, and you want to get to this weight. But for some reason, you haven't been able to, on your own, gotten to this weight and kept that weight off. It just hasn't happened yet. And the reason it hasn't happened yet is because you don't have the tools and you don't have the skills yet to accomplish that goal. And so for me, providing you with this 6-day meal plan, that's going to give you a lot of awareness, and it's going to help you to see what's really going on for you. So in this plan, I actually have you eating breakfast. Now, I do talk a lot about one of the best ways of making sure that you're going to get the goal, accomplish the goals that you want, is you want to learn to eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. And even full is that's an interesting concept, right? What is over full? What is you're actually satisfied? All of that can bring up a lot. So, but for the beginning, what we're doing is we're going to focus on 3 meals a day. And that's it. That's all the food you're going to eat for that day. So there's no snacks. There's no licks, bites, or nibbles. Okay. because we are wanting to get our body to become fat adapted. We want our body, and I call it dining in, because I do have some extra storage in my thighs and in my belly. And like, do I really need to be carrying that extra storage around? Not really, right? I really want my knees and my hips and my ankles and like all my joints to feel they're in their best way possible. Absolutely. I'm 46 and I have 5 children. My youngest is 8. I want to do all the things. I don't want to be held back. And so when I can really use all the fuel that's in my body already, that's amazing. And then I can just eat for what I actually need, and I'm going to be okay. So here in the meal plan, I have a lot of really great food for us to eat. Now, I'm going to just share some thoughts about, I do have a list, and it's in your handout, of recommended foods. But one of the reasons, and I have some time to talk about that right now, is one of the reasons why diets don't work is because there's actually like chips and chocolate and cinnamon buns. They're good. They taste good. They're not really that good for us. They don't kill us. And in fact, I plan and I eat cinnamon buns and I eat chocolate bars. I eat those things. And how I teach my clients, my one-on-one clients, coach them, they can totally do that. They can totally do that, because I don't want you to have a food plan that you're gonna like have to white knuckle and you're gonna have to stress and worry your whole time. And you're like, I can't wait for a break. That is not sustainable. And like, what kind of life is that? That's no fun. So if we can have a way of eating, it's just like, this is just how I eat. I don't have to wait for the weekend. I don't have to fall off the bandwagon. I don't have to be bad. Okay. It's really important. And I will talk a little bit more about that as we progress. But I do, like, as you look at these foods, I want you to like really think about, like, oh, okay, well, I do like bacon. Yeah, I do like salami. Okay, broccoli and cauliflower. Okay, all right. Okay, so we're going to talk about the good, better, and best list in just a little bit. So as you go through this menu plan, I want you to really think about what's coming up for you and really thinking like, could I actually be a person that would do this? Because when we talk about creating a menu plan and a way of like an approach to food, I want you to think about the emotion that you have. So everything we do in our life is to feel a certain thing. Absolutely. And so we then can like think about like, why do I want to take care of myself? How do I want to feel about my body? Do I want to feel like neutral about my body? Like, yeah, my body. Do I want to love my body? Do I want to appreciate my body? So when I appreciate my body, how do I show up with my body? Am I going to Dollarama and buying like 5 bags of chips and eating them that night? If I love and have compassion for my body? Think about that. Super, super interesting. Another reason why diets don't work. Okay, so I do have recipes included also in this, like for the Buddha bowls and for the Greek salad, and for there was one other recipe I included. Okay, so when we're thinking about food, we want to have proteins, fats, and carbs. Now, protein helps us, it gives us energy. Fats, they are super important for us. They are important for our brains. They're important for like how our bodies function. And we do need carbs. We absolutely do. But one of the other problems that we have suffered is that we don't understand that not all calories are created equally. So when you think of carbs, like potato chips are carbs. And so are broccoli, and cauliflower, and celery. Those are all carbs. So if you had 1,000 calories of potato chips and you had 1,000 calories of broccoli, how different would that 1,000 calories be processed in our bodies? Like really, how different? What are all the different side effects of those carbs. So that's really, really important to think about. And so one of the diet hangovers that we have is that we think, oh, well, if I have more of the ice cream, like it's like this bartering thing, right? You're like, well, if I have more of the ice cream and those foods, then, I've reached my calories. Now, calories are just literally like how fast it takes to burn. So you can actually calculate the calories of wood. Like everything that could be burned has a calorie count. So that's why this calories in, calories out isn't how things work. And that's why we have an obesity pandemic right now in the world, because this concept of calories in, calories out is just so skewed. It's not understood properly, and it's really been a disservice to so many people. Okay, so this is where I give you some suggestions, some tips and tricks on how to approach food and how do you approach how you are going to come up with a plan that's going to help you so much. So one of the things that I do with my clients and I do with myself is that I do a lot of work about my future self. Now, I have a whole webinar that I did on perfectionism and weight loss. And we have this idea that we want to have it right, and we want to be able to do it right. So when we go to our future self and we think, how can I do the best now for my future self? I'm in a process now of just being willing to fail and to fail and to fail so that I can win. So let's say I was like, hey, we're going to learn how to ride a unicycle. And you're like, a unicycle? And you're like, yeah, we're going to totally do it. We're going to learn how to ride a unicycle. It's going to be great. And we fail for like 10 hours. And I'm like, no, we got this. Come on, Colleen, we're going to ride a unicycle. But every time we fall off the unicycle doesn't mean that we're a total failure, because every time we fall off, we learn something new. We're like, oh, I need to be more in my core, or I need to be like not so much forward. I need to be more back. Because every time we're failing, every time we're falling off that unicycle, we're actually learning something that's going to help us to finally achieve the balance that's required to ride a unicycle. So when I go to my future self, I'm like, oh, hey, Dara. So when you're 50, you're going to want to have your ultimate body, like your ultimate like weight and everything. And you want to have like a really good system. And so you don't have to be worrying anymore about like what to eat, what not to eat. You're going to like love your body so much, or you're going to have this like relationship with your body that you don't even have to think about food anymore. It's like, it's just part of who you are, and you've got it regulated. Because when I'm 50, or even when I'm like this is a scenario, right? Because it's like, there's so many more important things in life than like worrying and stressing and being mean to myself and having all this negative self-talk about my body. Like, we got more stuff to do. Like, we have people to help. We have, all the things. And so when I think about my future self and I'm in this discomfort today of like, I don't know what to eat, I'm like, hey, guess what? I'm going to just learn to ride a unicycle. I'm just going to like make mistakes. I'm just going to be open to making mistakes. It's going to be all fine. Interesting, right? So now, when you look at this meal plan that I created for you, it has no flour or sugar in it. It doesn't. If you don't want to make your own salad dressings, and really like my salad dressings are so simple. It's like oil and vinegar with spices. I often put garlic in there, blend it up. I will put some mustard in there sometimes. Like, it's super simple and they're super delicious. But if you don't want to do that and there's a little bit of sugar from a salad dressing, don't stress about it, right? We want to create a food plan that we're going to feel really comfortable and really like happy to be there. So I really want you to, in that week, is to have no sugar and flour, because we're going to start giving our leptin and our ghrelin and our insulin, those hormones that we all have, an opportunity to like really do their stuff. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to have urges. Now, I have an entire program that's coming out soon on buffering. And buffering, all it is we buffer to eliminate the urges. We're always going to have urges. My goodness, I go to the grocery store. I always have urges when I go to the grocery store. Guaranteed. I always have, I have urges throughout the day. But the goal of buffering, and being able to understand about not buffering, is to allow the urges and not make a big deal of it. Isn't that amazing? So that's all it is. But we buffer with buying more fabric. We buffer with social media. We buffer with food. We buffer with alcohol. Like there's lots of different ways that we buffer. It's just letting us process urges. So you're going to have urges. And I help you to understand how to acknowledge the urge, process the urge, let it be in you, and then move on, okay? So you're gonna get frustrated. You're gonna want a snack. 10:30, you're like, no, I'm hungry. You're like, no, I'm actually not hungry. I just ate. I've got lots of storage. I'm okay. I got glycogen. I got like sugar going through my veins. I don't need the thing. And so we can have a fail-safe plan. So when we're feeling those urges and we're feeling that frustration that is inevitable, right? We just plan for it. We could go for a little walk. We could go like check our garden. We could go cut some, trim up some squares. We can go and just have like 15 minutes, put the timer on and have 15 minutes on social media. We could go watch one of Dara's YouTube videos or one of my IGTV of weight loss to encourage you. Like there's a lot of things you can do, okay? So when you are tempted, see, I didn't say if you're tempted. I said when you're tempted, because like, hey, welcome to being a human. To snack or eat something, pay attention to an urge. So that's like, I just really want to eat the thing. Allow it to be in you. And this is super challenging because just like if I was to teach you how to crochet and you've never crocheted before, or even like pre-motion quilting, right? You're like, this is not looking very good. You're like, if you're doing it on your domestic machine, you're like, this is really awkward. I'm not, and it doesn't look anything like Dara's. Okay, right? So you have this uncomfortable feeling and you just like let it be. You're like, okay, I can let it be in me. And I have, there's a couple of different ways of you to do this, but one is I have 100 urges. It's a 100 urges sheet. And every time you have an urge and every time you feel it, you're like, oh, this is super uncomfortable. You write it down. You're like, I really wanted that handful of chocolate chips when I walked in the kitchen, but I was like, with it, and it's like maybe a minute, maybe two, and I just took some deep breaths. I kind of paced the room. I went outside, but I let it be, and I didn't eat the handful of chocolate chips. You would actually write that down. Another one that Brooke Castillo from Life Coach School, my instructor, she has an urge jar. So she literally has a jar full of beads, and then she has an empty jar. And every time you have an urge, you pick up the one bead and you hold it in your hand, and you hold it and you put it in, you think about it, you ponder it, and then you let it pass through your body just like a wave, right? If you're at the beach, a wave comes, it hits you, you're like, okay, I got it, and then you put it in the jar. And every time you process an urge, guess what happens? You get stronger. So last summer, when we had the $1 ice cream cones at McDonald's and the $1 Frosties at Wendy's, my kids, every time they asked, I was like, yeah, sure. Guess what? All summer long, guess you didn't have one ice cream or one Frosty? This girl. And guess what that created for me? Really strong urge muscles. Is awesome. Okay? So stick to the plan, no licks, bites, or cheats. All right, that's super important. Now, one of the things that So in this meal plan, I do have the breakfast, lunch, and dinner with no snacking. But when I have my clients, I encourage them to try intermittent fasting, simply because our body doesn't need all the storage. Like, it doesn't need to keep carrying around all the storage. And if we keep putting all this food in our mouth, and we keep putting all the fuel right in our car, and we have all these jerry cans now, we need to use up the fuel that we have. And so, like, literally the word breakfast, it's like breaking the fast of that, because everyone actually intermittent fasts. Everyone does, right? Because we sleep. We don't eat like every 2 hours when we're sleeping. And so even just the idea of lengthening. So when I work with my clients and we create our own protocol, what we're doing is we are creating a eating window, right? That's going to maximize our body using the hormones that it needs. So if we have this eating window from like noon until 6, then from 6 o'clock all the way till noon, our body is like, woohoo, we're using the fuel. We're using the fuel that's in the body, okay? So when I ask you the question, like, what are your thoughts about your body? Now, this is a really personal question, and it can bring up a lot of emotions. Because what has happened to so many of us is that we are terrible to ourselves. We would probably never talk to our friends. Hopefully you can talk to your friends the way you talk to yourself. Hopefully you are speaking to yourself in a really kind way, but chances are you aren't. And that is a really important thing to monitor. This inner dialogue is probably one of the biggest things that we work on with how we can lose the weight and how we can keep it off. It's really, really important. And I want you to think about, how do you talk to yourself and what an impact that has on you. All right. So this one is a little bit tricky, and it is something that you can work towards, and you can work towards it. Okay. So the first one is weighing yourself every day. I know a lot of my clients struggle a lot with this because there's a lot of negative talk. There's a lot of negative feelings that they just want to avoid. There's a lot of head in the sand kind of approach to our bodies and to this weight loss. And so I teach my clients how, like, the scale is amazing. It really is. But so we need to weigh ourselves every day because we're just going to get really good information from that. But one of the things that I would encourage you to do is look at yourself naked in the mirror every day and see what thoughts are coming up. Really. And this is how I can coach people. I can help them so much on this. Like, what happens when you look at yourself naked? And what's coming up for you? It's so interesting. Take care of your physical appearance with makeup, hair, and clothes that fit you nicely. So we all have this, like, we're like, okay, when I get to this ideal weight, so mine was 164 pounds because that's what I was when I got married, then my life will be wonderful. So if I'm 200 pounds, which I was a couple of Christmases ago, how would I show up for myself? Would I do my hair? Would I do my makeup? Or would I just slough on some, stretchy yoga pants and a hoodie and like just throw my hair back in a ponytail and not do my makeup? How am I going to approach myself if I do that every day? As opposed to, hey, I'm going to buy some clothes that fit me, even if they're a size 16 or 18. I'm going to do my makeup and I'm going to do my hair, even when I'm 200 pounds. How different would I show up for myself? So how different would you show up for yourself if you actually took time to, get dressed, put on something that is clean, maybe you had to iron it, kind of put yourself together? How different would that be? Okay, so this is where we get to the to plan the food. Now, in order to plan the food, so I gave you the 6 weeks, the 6 days, but this is really good stuff. So vegetables, this is on the best list. Now, even in vegetables, because this can even get complicated, right? Because there are vegetables like carrots that have a pretty high glycemic index. They're very sugary. They turn like really fast, like just have a higher sugar content. So if you want to like really slow down the insulin or control how much insulin is actually going into your body, you could decide like how much like of the low glycemic index you want. We need to really think about that and how do you want to treat your body. So at the beginning, it also depends so much on like how much extra weight you're carrying around and what does that look like to be fat adapted. So I definitely have my my kind of strata of like vegetables that are like really, really good for me and other vegetables. So if I know that I'm having a lot of sweet potatoes, I'm gonna have like a pretty good insulin rush on that. Definitely mashed potatoes, totally. They got lots. But guess what? They're also from the earth and they also have really good nutrients. And so I just get to decide how I want to show up for that. And then I use the scale as my guide. So if I've eaten a lot of mashed potatoes or roasted potatoes and the scale hasn't moved or it's gone up, I'm like, oh, so maybe I need to reduce how many I have, right? It's just like, oh, we're just going to see how that works. But there's definitely ones on here that are going to be so much easier on us, like lettuce and broccoli, green beans, Brussels sprouts, dandelion greens, broccoli, rabi, cabbage, mushroom, eggplant. Like those ones, awesome. Tomatoes, peppers, onions, zucchini, fabulous. Cauliflower, oh my goodness. Artichoke hearts, snow peas, watercress. Those ones, I'm like, yeah, those ones are awesome. Spinach, asparagus, celery, garlic. But if you're looking more like the carrots and the butternut squash, that's not as bad, but those are like higher on the glycemic index. So that's just good to know, right? Same thing with fruit. So we have good fats, and remember, we need fat in our bodies. We really do. It's like it greases all of the joints, right? And fat is not, insulin is not spiked by fat. So if you are wanting to increase your decrease your eating window and increase your time where your body is like being fat adapted, one of the things that I do is I will have herbal tea. And if I'm feeling like I need just a little bit of an energy boost because it's hard for me, I will put whole cream in my herbal tea in the morning. I actually almost always have avocados because if I even feel like I want to eat something, but I don't want to I don't want to like be putting a lot of glycogen or sugar in my bloodstream, I'll go have an avocado. And it's great. It's like all fat, super good, so healthy for me. We do need to be careful about how many nuts we eat because they definitely are, they can have a lot of calories. And so we have to be careful because they're also like fat and carbs. And so that's kind of we do want to limit how much we have. Okay, so then there's cheese, there's eggs, there's lots of good proteins there. We've got some grains. I personally don't eat a lot of grains in how I eat. I limit that just because I do have, it turns very quickly into insulin for me. But like a quinoa, that's like a whole grain. That's going to take time to process. All right, fruits. Now, same thing with fruits. The fruits that I recommend to my clients is the 3-berry mix from Costco. It's like blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries. Those are very, very low in the glycemic index. I often have that for I have a little bowl after dinner with some cream in it. Apples have more higher sugar, but they also have fiber. So again, we want we want to have food that's going to fuel us and it's going to feel good. And we just get to decide like what we're eating. And so one of the ways that I coach my clients is I help them to like, let's monitor what foods are serving us and what aren't. Okay, so we want to avoid gluten-free flours, any sort of food that has a flour. What they're doing is they're grinding up all the good nutrients, and then now you're left with like a powder form. And that's kind of like, oh, this looks like drugs, right? Like cocaine. So you're taking out all the good and you're just left with this really high carb content. So if you have like almond flour or even coconut flour, those are much better because they basically just grind down the coconut. They don't actually take out like the almond, like the protein from the almonds and the fats from that. Same thing with the coconut. Okay. The okays to have, it's okay, like condiments, broths, spices, and up to you if you want. So the dark chocolate and artificial sweeteners. So artificial sweeteners kind of react to people in different ways. And so I would just really be observant of how those react in your body. And again, I help my clients like really hone in on that food plan that's going to help them. Okay, so here's some recipes. We got the Buddha bowl. This is basically like a salad bar, but you can have the roasted sweet potatoes and onions. You can add all sorts of yummy vegetables like grated carrots, and you could put chickpeas in there. Beans are carbs, but they also have a lot of fiber. And so when you have the increase of the fiber, that will reduce the amount of carbs. So if you have like 12 grams of carbs and there's like 10 grams of fiber, that's actually only 2 grams of carbs. So that's great for you. And our bodies do need fiber, obviously. The Greek salad, oh my goodness, we eat a lot of Greek salad at our house. I love it. I just do equal parts oil vinegar with the Greek spice mix that you can buy at the grocery store. Just shake it on. So beautiful. Oh, I forgot to put peppers. That's funny, I forgot that. But bell peppers, put those in there. Those are so yummy and sweet and delicious. Tuna wraps. So instead of tuna melts like on bread, you just mix this chopped mayo, onion, and tuna. If you want to put a little curry in there, that's yummy too. And then just butter and lettuce wrap. And that's super yummy. Okay. So what's your plan? How can this work moving forward? How will you know if it's working? How are you going to commit? So what I say to my clients is, the way we can approach weight loss, it's like we're just using the scientific method. So the scientific method is just letting us be like, okay, I want to invent this thing. I want to create this thing. And in order to create it, I'm going to figure out like how much of this do I need? How much of that do I need? And so we are a living, breathing science experiment. So when we walk on the scale every morning, it literally is just the amount of gravity that our body has on the earth. So when I walk on the scale, I'm like, oh, so yesterday when I had lunch and a snack and I had dinner, that is giving me a 2-pound weight gain. Interesting. So then I look back at what I ate the day before, and I'm able to see how those foods react in my body. And so today, I'll make different choices, and then I can see. Now, one of the suggestions for sure to do is to write down the foods that you're going to eat the next day. And guess what you could do? You could write down a cheeseburger, and then you'd have to eat the cheeseburger, okay? Because all you're doing is getting a lot of good information. Okay, now I want to ask the question, how different would your life be if you had this all figured out? Think about how much time you spend thinking, obsessing, worrying, all the things about your weight. Think about how you talk to yourself. Think about how you show up for yourself. Think about what happens in the morning when you get dressed. Think about when you go out with friends and how do you say things? Do you not say things? How confident do you feel? How frustrated do you feel with yourself? How many things you don't try because you feel all the things. Okay, so I really want you to think about that. I have some clients who they would say that 20 minutes out of every hour they spend hating themselves, unkind to themselves, beating themselves up, spinning in frustration or indecision. And I did the math. I was like, so if you are awake for 12 hours and there's 20 minutes, that's 240 minutes. Divide that by 60. So that's 4 hours every day. What would you do with that extra 4 hours if you figured out how to lose the weight and love yourself? Or how to even love yourself and not even have to lose weight. In fact, I tell my clients that I'm like, you know what? You can learn to love yourself and not lose 1 pound. But actually losing the weight is just going to be a byproduct of learning to love yourself. It's like the funnest cycle ever. Okay. So I got it figured out, you guys. I figured out how to lose weight. I did it with no exercise and not counting calories. And this is how I help my one-on-one clients. And so I offer 6-month programs for one-on-one coaching. And so there's so much to do with that. They have 1 hour every week with me where I just coach their brains, everything that's coming on. They have Marco Polo where they get to talk to me anytime they want during the week and I respond to them. They get my 6-week weight loss program that's like all the videos and handouts and worksheets. They're going to be getting my buffering program that's like amazing videos and like a 70-page workbook. They also get my 80-page life coaching workbook. It's amazing. Because what we do is we actually rewire our brains. And we learn about how the lower in the moment brain, the lower brain, operates versus the higher brain. So I help them understand all of that. And I give them tools that help them to do that. So let's have a conversation about how to get the life that you really want. And in order to do that, what you do is you schedule a consult with me. And so when you come on the consult, it's a very organized method of like me asking you a bunch of questions of like where you are and what's going on for you, where you want to be. And then we talk about if it's a good fit for us to work together and how do we move forward. So, all right. So that is our presentation. So I'm going to stop this recording because I think it'd be really helpful to other people. So sciatica is just neutral and it needs to go away. That's your thought. And when you have that thought, you feel frustrated. So when you feel frustrated, you try to sew, you immerse yourself in other things. So you basically avoid, you eat, which oftentimes is takeout because it's hard for you to stand in the kitchen. Then you do a lot of buffering with social media and TV. Okay. So when you do all of these things, the result is that you avoid yourself and you don't take care of yourself. Now, you see what's happened is you think that because you have sciatica, then that is the result. And so you think that, you feel that you have to feel frustrated, but it's this thought of it needs to go away. So if we change that model, because what I teach my clients is we're going to do what's called a thought download. And so sciatica, that's just neutral, remember? And so we write down a whole bunch of different ideas about sciatica. So you could be like, oh, I finally can rest. I worked my whole life and finally this is like the universe saying I can just rest and be okay. And I can just sit and be calm. Like that could be a thought, right?
I really thought was going to happen when I retired. I never thought about not being able to function the way I'm used to functioning. So for me, it's very internal. It's very frustrating.
Totally. And because you keep resisting it, and you're like, this is not the retirement plan that I had for myself. This is
Right.
not the way I want it to be. So you're so frustrated, right? So you're not even creating any sort of like happy retirement plan. You're at the mercy of this thing.
Is that why every day you have the same thing? I mean, even though I sew, some days are better than other days. Like yesterday I tried, but I was in so much pain I couldn't even deal with it, so I put it away. But so you just have to tell yourself and make your own happy within what you have, and not place so much importance on the sciatica and that it needs to go away. But
well, Jeannie, what would happen if you just had the thought, this is my new life? And so what if you had this thought, like, this is my new life, what would be the feeling?
I could do anything. No limits.
You're like, this is my life. I have a life where I sit more.
Meaning that I could walk wherever I wanted to walk without having to go sit down, or even traveling sometimes is difficult, but I do it because I want to see my other child. But to me, it would be that you didn't have any limits, that you would just be your regular old self, that you do stuff.
Yeah, but you can't, right? You do have, like, sciatica has new rules. You're like, oh, I thought I was playing by the rules of when I got retired, then I could be the same energy level and do all the things that I used to do. I thought that was the rules, but they actually changed the rules. So now we're playing Monopoly. We're not playing Scrabble anymore. We're playing Monopoly, and Monopoly has different rules. We're like, oh, okay. So now what my retirement looks like is I'm going to be sitting more. I have this new rule. And so the sooner we can accept it and be like, oh, okay, so this is what it's going to look like. Then, so let's say you decided when you were a little girl, you wanted to have 5 children, and you were going to live in a house with a white picket fence, and your husband was going to do all the work, and he's going to make a lot of money, and you would never have to work outside the home, and you had everything you wanted. Okay, let's say that you had that thought.
Okay.
Then you got married, and it turned out that the husband didn't have the high-paying job, and it turned out you couldn't have 5 children because of health issues, and you did have to work. So it's like you saying to yourself, well, this isn't the life that I wanted, so I'm not going to have a life at all.
Well, I don't know that I feel that way, but you have to learn to accommodate with what you have.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you thought that it was going to be one way, but you're like, oh, it's not. So now you're like, acceptance. It's like, oh, my retirement is me sitting in a chair more.
So if I learned to accept it more, it wouldn't be this vicious thing that I think is out there. It would just be a thing, and maybe it would ease up and life could get better. So
because another tool that I teach my clients is life is 50-50. 50% of life is challenging and 50% is amazing. Just like if we don't actually experience joy, we would never experience pain because we wouldn't know the difference, right? Just like light and dark. Like right now we know it's light out because we know what dark looks like. So what's happening with you right now, so, you have your 50%, you have 50% of your life is great. Like you live with your daughter, and you have money, and we have running water, like you have a retirement fund, like you have all these things. But what happens here is that you're like, you have sciatica, however you spell it. But, and you're not as mobile as you want. But because you're resisting it, and because you're not allowing it to be, this is now 3 times worse.
Got it.
Right?
I got it. Right.
Yeah. So when you avoid and resist, you're just making it worse. Isn't that amazing to know that?
Yes. Because that's what's hammered in your head. And if you could release that, because the days that you wake up and everything starts out really good, they're wonderful days. But then I have some really awful days. And then I tell myself, well, if I'd really taken better care of myself, whatever. But part of the problem is not having the mobility you want to have, obviously. But the other thing is the way we eat the food. So I'm trying to correct all these good things. And eventually, by just listening to the things that you had said, and you're busy, you have those 4 kids.
5, yeah.
You know, your 5 children rather. But and I used to be that kind of busy, but I'm not anymore. So I need to be the center of me. That's really what it says.
Yeah.
I need to be important for myself for a change. That's the crux.
Yeah. And so we accept, and then we have a lot of compassion for ourselves. And then what's the third one, Lori? You must remember it. The third is curiosity. Okay, so the first thing we do is we accept where we're at. And then we give ourselves so much love. Like, how often do you say to yourself, Jeannie, do you be like, oh my gosh, look what I've done. Look what I created. I worked, I raised my kids. I was a nurse. I cared for so many people. I have this relationship. I have an amazing life. I have a home to live in. I have clean running water. I never really have to worry about money because I have this retirement, even though it might be humble. I don't know what it is, but you know, and how often do you be like, I am like one of the smartest people I know. Like, look what I have.
I used to kind of think that way till I got retired. And like I said, I've had a few quirks in my.
This is heavy.
Yeah. But
so you're off balance now.
I feel like I'm fortunate, and of my 2 kids, my son is more like you. He thinks you need to seek out to figure out to be a better person, and he's all about self-help and, you know, Mom, you need to feel better about yourself, you know, those kinds of things. Because as a mom, we tend to take care of everybody else, and we're always last. And I should be first at this time and be able to I shouldn't feel guilty. I don't even think I should feel bad that I have this sciatica. I just need to figure out how to process it a little bit more so it's not center in my life. Maybe somewhere down on a bottom rung, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I coach my dad's cousin actually, and she has Parkinson's. And I said to her, I'm like, guess what? It's just neutral. Like, and she was a nurse also. And she thought, well, she actually said, she's like, sometimes I wish I had cancer, because if I had cancer, I know I could potentially be cured. Isn't that interesting? It's like, I
don't think like that. I just would like it to go away. But at the same time, when you say that, think about all the disabled people there are in the world. It could be something so much worse than what it is. So I do try to just live with it, but maybe, like I said, if I turned it around and I didn't give it so much presence up at the top,
you're like, this is the worst. Yeah, exactly, right?
You know,
for you.
It would, because basically I think I'm a pretty happy person, and I like I said, I did high risk preemies, if you want to know, for 40 years. Wow. And I miss my babies. I miss them terribly. Sure. But I couldn't even do it part-time because I can't stand. So I had this loss when I finished working. It took me about 3 months to figure out what I should do with myself, because I was used to sleeping all day, getting up, having a place to go. And you're just, when you're in that kind of a job, you're just nonstop.
Yeah, you're like focused. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so now,
it sounds to me, Jeannie, it sounds like you just get to learn you just get this opportunity to create the very life that you want. You're like, oh my goodness, I have sciatica, I have a house, I have lots of fabric. Like, you have all these ingredients. So now you're like, oh, these are all the ingredients. What am I going to make with this? Like, what kind of result am I going to create with this, like all these amazing ingredients?
Well, I have to tell you, I counted for we've lived in this house 6 years. They bought this house because it has a casita. It's like a mother-in-law house, and my son-in-law's working on that, so I'll eventually have my own house. But they fixed their whole living room up so I could sew every day. Nobody ever complains about your stuff. And I'm very good. I made 30 quilts last year, and I quilt all mine myself on my home machine. So
Wow.
I am functional. Aside from I do a little bit of housework and that kind of stuff. So if I could get the food under control and how I think about the sciatica under control, and lose some weight like what you did. You said over a period of time, and you looked at yourself and you didn't really think about that. Is it because we overthink it? Is that what it is?
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's go to, so we did the model that is, we know like what's like this gotta go away, frustration. Let's do a model that's gonna help you to get the results. Because what's the result that you really wanna have?
I'd love to lose 150 pounds.
So what would be that weight?
Let's see, I weigh about 250. Maybe I just need to lose 100 pounds. Maybe that's where I could be.
So we're going to change the circumstance. The circumstance is 250 pounds, and you want to be 150 pounds, okay?
Okay.
So the result is 150 pounds. What do you think you would have to feel about yourself to be 150 pounds? Like, what do you think?
All the things that you said before, the things about, I'm not a makeup person, but I do get up, I shower, I dress. I'm not a vain person, and I don't know, clothes, those things, you wear clothes because that's what we're supposed to do, but I'm not.
Okay.
And yeah, I'd love to think I used to be 100 pounds. I was 100 pounds all through high school. I would love to just lose a little bit more weight. I think that would help me be more functional in life and probably happier. It's how you feel about yourself.
Okay. So if you are at your ideal weight, so think about someone who's at their ideal weight. How do you think they feel about themselves?
When I look at you, you're glowing, you're happy, there's like no limits there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. That's totally how I feel. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this.
I mean, it comes across in how you speak, but I watch you on Instagram, even about quilting things, and even there, it exudes. It just exudes out of your person. So you're
do you think I accept myself, Jeannie?
No, I don't think you stuff yourself. I think
I accept myself.
Oh,
you think
yeah, you do.
Yeah? Do you think I love myself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I love myself. Even when I make a mistake, even when I mess up, I just love myself. I have unconditional love for myself. Okay. So what do you think I think about to love myself? Because because I know I'm going to make, I know that 50% of my life is going to be not so great. And I know I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to love myself regardless. So what do you think I thought I would have that would help me to love myself all the time?
I think you have to come to that realization that what you just said about the 50% is good, 50% is the other way. So if you want to be, I think if you just want to be happy in life, do the things that make you happy and keep you contented. But liking yourself is one of them.
So I accept that life is 50-50.
Right.
So when I know that life is 50-50, because, I am the recovering perfectionist, right?
Yes.
So I used to think that if I figured it all out, if I was so smart, I would never have to feel negative emotion ever again. That's really what you're doing, right? So I'm
but you,
I don't have to do that.
Life has ups and downs. And I tell my kids that when they're having issue, if life, this was my analogy, and it's probably my own analogy for myself. If life was a flat line, it would just be awful, and we would all be the same,
know,
and
right?
it would be very boring. And I said, so
So
when you look at life, it has ups, it has downs, and you need to learn to accommodate within that.
I love that. Okay. So life. So
Think of life as if when I use it with my kids when they're having a problem, and I need to apply it to myself. But if their life was a flat line, we
yeah.
would be all the same, and you wouldn't
So
see
a
any
flatline life would be
you
all
would be all the same.
would be yeah. So boring. So,
Right. That equates to boredom, and everybody's the same. But life
Okay.
has, I always tell them, peaks and valleys. And within
Yeah.
those peaks and valleys is what you're talking about, the 50% that's unhappy and the 50% that's happy. That equates to the 100%.
Well, the
So
funny thing is, if you had a flat line, you'd be dead, right? Like
correct.
literally,
Correct.
you would be dead.
But you, when you're talking to, and even though my kids are your age, you have to
Yeah.
give them a visual. Okay,
Yeah,
so the
right?
line
Okay,
is the
let's
visual.
give your visual. Let's do this.
Okay.
So a flatline life would be all the same.
Right.
We know that. So we know that we're going to have like peaks and valleys. So
Correct.
what's the feeling that comes from knowing that thought?
You have to accommodate to it to keep yourself happy. There's no
Yeah.
other way. I mean, you can resist it, and if you resist it, it's where I am right now with my sciatica. I'm frustrated.
So maybe instead of accommodate, we could say acceptance.
Okay, it's the same to me if you accommodate to it or you accept how it is.
So let's do that. Accommodate. Okay. So when we accommodate or accept that there's going to be highs and lows, that
Right.
like the flatline life would be all the same. How do you act? What do you do?
It depends on the day. If you wake up and it's a good day, you're happy
Yeah.
like you are, and it exudes. You can see that you're settled within your person. You like your person. That has to do, to me, what all the things you talked about today. Looking in a mirror, accepting yourself for who you are, and not judging yourself so harshly. Let go
Yeah.
of some of that and learn to love yourself more.
So I appreciate myself. I
Mhm.
don't judge. So because I do have 50% of my life is challenging and hard, how do you think that what that looks like? So if I'm like having, like, let's say, for example, you're having a lot of pain in your sciatica, what would that look like to show acceptance? What would you do?
Well, the way I accept it is I just try to deal with it every day, and I still.
Yeah, but like that's
still
not
set-
helping you, right? So
Well,
what would be a more
some days
productive?
it doesn't. You have to set goals to keep going, because if you don't, there is no life, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? You're back to that
Yeah.
flat line. You
you
need
set
the
goals to achieve
goals.
them. Okay. Let's say though you're really in a lot of pain and you just want to go have a pity party and order out. You want to skip the dishes. Okay, so what would be different to get to a 150-pound version of you rather than a 250?
What would be different?
Like what
I
would you
don't-
have to do different?
You have to, like what I've been doing the last few days. I've just been looking at what I have here in the refrigerator and making better choices.
Yeah. So you're going to eat for goodness, right? You're going to eat for like
Mhm.
nurturing your body rather than, so that's part of appreciating yourself and accepting, don't judge yourself, and you accept the pain.
And then the pain becomes less intense
Right?
at that point, because I hate
Okay.
to say it, but you're in agreement with it, so to speak, right?
Well, it's going to happen anyway. You're going to
Right.
have the pain anyway. So
Right.
you're like, no pain, you're not allowed. But your pain's like, this is just what happens. I just
Yeah.
have pain.
Yeah.
Like,
No, that's
so
true.
if you could just be like, okay, pain, I just love you. Right? It's going
If
to
you
happen
embrace
anyway.
it won't be that center focal point, so to speak.
Right. Okay. So let's go. The circumstances currently, you're 250 pounds. The
Mhm.
thought is a flatline life would be all the same. You don't want
Right.
to have a flatline life. So
Nope.
when you accept that, you're like, this is acceptance. I feel acceptance and I can accommodate for that. So when you feel acceptance and you accommodate about a flatline life would be all the same, with this 250 pounds is just your circumstance, then you appreciate yourself, right? And because you've accepted that a flatline life would be all the same. You don't judge because you've accepted that a flatline life would be all the same. You set goals and achieve them because you've accepted that a flatline life means that everyone to be the same. You eat for goodness because you have acceptance of a flatline line life would be all the same. You accept your pain because you've accepted it, right? That you know that you can't have a life that's not without any difficulties. And because you've done all those things, guess what's going to happen?
You'll start to lose the weight.
You're going to lose the weight, and eventually you're going to get to 150 pounds, or I'm actually going to put here, I'm going to put your ideal weight, because we don't even know what your ideal weight is. Because you're no longer going to be shoving food, and you're not going to be resisting all the time.
So part of the cycle of this is that you use the food because of like for me, I use food because just like I use TV, I'm frustrated. So that's the easy thing, to go to the kitchen to overeat.
Yeah, you just put your head in the sand. You're like, I don't want to deal with this food. I don't want to deal with this TV. I don't want to deal with this.
Got it.
Okay, instead of accepting and accommodating that a flatline life.
That's kind
All
of
right.
the analogy, but that's my analogy. And
Great.
My kids live by that, so.
Love it. All right, does Colleen or Lori, do you have any other questions? Or any aha moments from the webinar?
I like the fact that weight loss would be a side effect of treating yourself better and just being nice to yourself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's huge. It's you guys, I can't even emphasize to you how powerful this is. Because, even in because like we all have this diet hangover. I did a 5-day fast. This is just a few weeks ago, and I lost 10 pounds in 5 days. And I was like, what is happening? This is amazing. I was under 150 pounds. I was like, I didn't even know this was possible. And then, I ate normally, like in my normal healthy way. And in fact, that week I even did keto. Like I don't normally do keto, but I was like really curious about like how much like keto I was at on there. And guess what? I gained 8 pounds eating like super healthy. And I was like, oh, this was so interesting. It's like my body has its like beautiful weight. Like it really is. Like it's so interesting. And so like if we have this diet hangover thing, like you were talking about, Colleen, about loving myself, if I wouldn't have had that understanding, I'd have been like, I am terrible. Everything is wrong. What's happening? I'm a loser. Like, no, it's like, oh, this is so interesting. My body, like I broke down all this old protein and I was able to like, lose all that weight. And I'm just a science experiment. I'm just like learning all these new things. It doesn't mean anything about me. It's like, oh, and so now, and now it's like, I just keep on this road, and I've been on this road now. I had my first life coaching session, I think like the beginning of July in 2018. And look how much I've changed. It's amazing. And guess what? My husband hasn't changed. My kids haven't changed. My house hasn't, like none of the external things have changed to bring me happiness, which I used to think that was the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can just change me. And so now my husband's like, it was always fun to be married to me. But now he's just like, I really like this version of you. I think it's great. I'm like,
so they notice, but they know.
Totally. My kids, everyone. Yeah, I sleep more. It's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
It shows you're a very happy person.
Yeah. So any other things that people want to be coached on, or aha moments that they learned? So Colleen, you talked about the importance of loving yourself, and it's a byproduct. That's when, Colleen, when I say like weight loss has never been about the food, it's true. It's never really about the food. It's about how you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself, how you allow yourself to process emotions. that's why having a life coach. And so really what a life coach does is it's like you and I sit on the couch and you show me your thoughts, kind of like with Jeannie, right? She showed us her thoughts about this has got to go away, and she feels frustrated. And because she does all those things, she escapes herself. Okay. And so then I just help you like over and over and learn and like process all of it. So powerful. And it's not always so much fun either. I'm just going to warn you. Like yesterday, I had one of my clients and she's like, Dara, I really didn't want to show up today. I really didn't want to come. I was like, of course you don't want to come. I'm like seeing all the thoughts that you have that you don't like, that are like, they're not serving you. So to have to talk to someone about it and to have to like actually see your thoughts, you're like,
but that makes you more accountable to you when you see that.
totally. That's why. So when I always say in my Instagram stories, I'm always like, this is where you're at right now, the 250 pounds or whatever you are, or in your marriage or whatever it is. And this is where you want to be. But you don't know how to get to where you want to go because you don't have the steps. You don't know, because there's a lot of thoughts that we are having about ourselves that we're not even aware of. And we don't even realize how they're holding us back. So we have the lower brain, of course, the in the moment brain, and how we were, created. So because we didn't ever know when for sure we're going to have our next meal, we were actually hunted, right? Like all of that. We haven't evolved to our newest circumstances. Like we have homes and we have grocery stores. Like we don't need to have the fight, flight, and freeze instinct so much. And that's why it was interesting, right? Because the pandemic hit, and guess what? There's no flour or yeast in the grocery stores because people are like, we better bulk up, right? It totally makes sense because our lower brain is kicking in, and the lower brain wants us to do three things. It wants us to stay safe, it wants us to seek comfort, and it wants us to conserve energy. And back in the day, that served us really well. But now we don't necessarily need that anymore. And so what I help my clients do is we understand like what's going on, we process the emotion, and then when we process that emotion, then we can operate from our higher brain. And our higher brain really does know it knows how to help us. And that's why I can be so happy, because I still process all sorts of emotions. I still have difficulties and challenges, but I don't resist them anymore. I'm just like, oh yeah, this is the 50% of my day that's struggling, or this is the 50% that's really uncomfortable. That's all.
For me, a lot of times when I go to lay down to go to bed at night, it's like I equate it to a wheel in my head. It never shuts off. It just goes round and round and round, and there's never any resolve there.
Yeah, I call it the hamster wheel. And so many of my clients, they're just like, get me off the hamster wheel. And that's what we do, because we think, right? If we're like, yeah, no, totally. It's very, very common. We learn how to ground ourselves.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I had no idea what life coaching was. And when she said that, and she was a fabric designer, and I like had so much respect for her, and I was just like, I totally want to like get help. I don't know what she's talking about. I don't know what is happening. And it was the best decision. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made, because it has totally, totally changed my life. And that's why I get on social media and say like, hey guys, you probably don't know this, but this could really help you. And right now I have 11 clients. It's amazing. And I'm looking for more. I want to help more people because it changes your life.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Lori, Colleen, Jeannie, sorry. Any other comments before I go?
Thank you for it was great.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So any other questions? I don't want to like cut people off. Sometimes it does take a lot of courage to ask questions and to share. So I love that you were here. I love that you showed up. I really, really appreciate it. Okay, so as I said, if you want to discuss further about what it would be like to work with me, we can set up what's called a consult, and we can talk a little bit more about where you're at right now, get really curious about why you think that you're at where you are, and then we can talk about how we can move forward and actually get you the results that you really want that are going to really serve you in your life. So, and you can do that. You can do that now if you want, or I have on my Instagram, in my profile, it says, what does it say? I think it says book a consult with Dara. Yeah, schedule your time with Dara. So it's just the little one there, and I have openings, and I would love to help you achieve your goals. All right. Thank you so much. And as you know, you can always DM me on Instagram. Yeah. All right. Take care, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.